How's it going, folks? So I have a little bit of a fun story to tell y'all before I get into this reaction. But I was listening to the latest, actually debut full-length album from the band Wings of Steel, which is the band I'll be doing a reaction to. I was listening to the album, and literally as I was listening to the album, the band reached out to me and asked if I would check out another one of their, or do another reaction, because I did a reaction previously to, I believe it was their first single from the album. And I was like, that's so funny, I'm actually listening to the album right now. And so they eventually asked if I would check out they recently released a video for, I believe it's called Leather and Lace, if I'm not mistaken. Leather and, anywho, yeah, their latest video. But they asked me if I would check out a song that they didn't release as a single. And I was like, cool, yeah, I'd be happy to. So I listened to every song on the album except this one, which is Gates of Twilight, which is the title track of the album. And so after this reaction, I'll just give you very brief thoughts on the album, my thoughts on the album briefly. Anywho, before I get into all of that, let's check this out. This is Wings of Steel with the song Gates of Twilight. And I just thought it was so funny that as I was literally listening to the album, the band reached out and asked if I would do another reaction. So, but yeah, anywho, here we go. Rangers, go.
Inside an iron
Well, that was phenomenal. Definitely one of my favorites off the album right off the bat. I have several, but this song, it's it's so metal. It's so like classic heavy power metal, really old school, kind of 80s style, and it's just glorious. Those guitar riffs are just so rhythmic, and it just got such a nice groove to it. And then the vocals. The one thing about the vocalist, he's killer. I mean, absolutely killer. His voice is nuts. His range and his highs and everything are wild. And his talent at just, he has such control over his voice. And it's even more, I mean, it's quite evident in this song. But it's even more so evident in some of the other songs on the album, where he just has such control. It is so effortless, his vocals, even though they're so gnarly. He approaches it with such a easy breezy kind of attitude. He makes it seem so easy, and he's just all over the place. And like I said, throughout the whole album, just the control and the movement in his voice and delivery, and it's just always going. It's not like very rigid vocals, like bum bum bum, just staying very static. I mean, he is just constantly moving. It's just nuts, absolutely nuts. And it's very clear in this song, how he has that skill. But this song too, I just love the vibe, love the feeling of it. It's heavy, nice chugging guitars. And the solo, it's crazy how it's got a very moderate kind of pace to it for the most part. Very headbanging, but more of just a rhythmic kind of movement. But then the guitar solo comes in, and suddenly everything picks up. The drums kick in, and it goes wild. And it's like I could see like just a pit forming out of nowhere, and people just going berserk. It was sick. It really gives it's almost like a jolt of adrenaline. You're already pretty pumped and whatnot, but then it's like somebody literally just gives you an adrenaline shot, and boom, you take off. And then after that, it was so cool how you kind of have like those backing vocals, almost sounds a little bit kind of like a choir in there, and that breathes new life into the song after that, because you think you have the song figured out, and then that solo isn't kind of like a mid-tempo kind of solo. It just takes off. It's speedy, it's aggressive. And then you get, like I said, kind of those backing vocals, which just add a totally new flair to the song. And like I said, just breathes new life into it. And the song, it has a couple of those changes throughout, and that keeps it feeling fresh and like a very organic kind of song, the way it changes and shifts. And it just keeps you very interested, keeps things moving. It's just really, really cool. Killer song, absolutely killer. I loved everything about it. The guitar work was stellar. The drums were nuts. I mean, the vocals, of course, were just out of this world. And it's just such an awesome kind of 80s, late 80s heavy power metal song that it has grit, it has groove, it's got some speed to it, got some great melody to it, and it's just killer, absolutely killer. Yeah, one of my favorites off of the album. The song rocks. So the album itself, I'll tell you very briefly, is really, really neat. I went into it thinking it was going to be a little bit more of kind of a straightforward, kind of classic heavy metal sort of album, but there is so much to this album where there's influences from all sorts of things. Some are a little bit more on kind of the power metal side, like I would say this song, but then others have a little bit of a different vibe, a little bit of a different feeling. And so it's an adventure all the way through. It's not just a very straightforward heavy metal album. There's a lot in there where it changes, it shifts, and the band members, they really show off their skills at being able to adapt and kind of weave in different feelings and influences. And then the vocalist he just adapts so well too, and it just suits him. The more kind of interesting, the more fusion of styles they get in there, it's almost like his voice shines even more because you just really see how gnarly he is. But one of my favorite songs is called Garden of Eden, and it's this really, and it described by the band themselves, because I told them how much I love that song, and they said, yeah, it's a real kind of doomy blues metal style song, and that's spot on. It really, really is. And it's like the fourth track, I think, and I was like, whoa, what is this? But that's just the tip of the iceberg, because then from there, you get other songs that just have all these different kind of vibes, and it's just a killer album. It's so groovy, it's so metal, and it's different. It really, really is different, and I feel like that is something you don't see every day when it comes to kind of at their core, kind of a classic heavy metal style band. You don't always get so much of that kind of creativity or willingness to kind of change things up a little bit, turn things on their head a little bit, and experiment a little bit. And so it's really refreshing. And another one of my favorite songs is the final song, Into the Sun. So cool. Another kind of groovy, a little bit of blues kind of vibe in there, but it also has a little bit of a Western kind of vibe. There's like a bell that kind of rings. It kind of sets the tone for it. It gave me a little bit of kind of a classic Western sort of feeling, and it just is really, really cool. Again, that's another one of my favorite songs. And then this one here, Gates of Twilight, is just so sick. But yeah, I highly recommend this album for any heavy metal fan. And I really think y'all will find it quite refreshing, quite different, and quite unique, and quite impressive. So yeah, I just kind of wanted to give my 2 cents on the album a little bit, because I just won't have time to do an album thoughts on it. I kind of focus these days as best I can on the albums that I'm given kind of early press copies of. So I try to focus on doing album reviews on those predominantly, and if I can weave in some others, I try. But just thought I'd take this opportunity to kind of give my thoughts on the album, and highly recommend it, and especially if you like this song. And there's so much more to them though, and it's just a really unique album, and I'm quite impressed with it. So yeah, very enjoyable. But let me know in the comments down below, folks, what do you think of this song here? Did you listen to the album already? If so, I'd love to hear your thoughts. But yeah, thank you so much for tuning in, folks, and I'll catch you next time. Ranger, out.